In order to create a successful reboot of Doctor Who, showrunner Russell T Davies needed one element to work perfectly. Davies approached Robert Shearman, who'd written Jubilee, a Doctor Who audio drama released by Big Finish Productions in 2003, about the last surviving Dalek, the only survivor of a war that wiped out its race, being held prisoner until the Doctor and his companion encounter it. Davies wanted him to adapt that story into a mid-season episode of his new series of Doctor Who, with the aim of updating a villain created by Terry Nation in 1963 for 2005. However, this plan was nearly halted before it even began. The estate of Terry Nation still owned the rights to the Daleks, not the BBC, and refused to allow them to be used in the new series of Doctor Who.
So I begin writing Dalek as it's not at that point yet called. It's left very, very vague for a while. And I do about 5 drafts of that until the summer, when I'm having a nice meal with Stephen Moffat, and indeed mocking him, because I'm so far through my script and he's yet to start, when a phone call comes from Julie Gardner saying that the Daleks have been lost. There's no realistic concept of getting them back. It isn't going to happen. So draft 6, as I then call it, becomes a story called Absence of the Daleks, which was my attempt at being funny. That one note of humour in a rather worrying, tense month. I'm actually strangely relieved that we lost them. I mean, I wouldn't have said that at the time, because it was a horrible experience, but it helped the episode no end to have the Daleks removed for a while.
Eventually a deal was reached, however, and the Daleks were secured and ready to be revamped and designed for the modern era. From the start, Russell T Davies was set on the new Daleks being bronze and gold, and while other colour schemes were tested out, such as early concept art which shows a dark grey and black Dalek chained up, testing the other colour schemes were more a matter of standard procedure, and Davies' bronze was chosen. In designing the shape of the new Dalek, Davies wanted it to be the most Dalek that's ever been created.
I was very keen when the Daleks were coming back that they should look like Daleks. He said there's absolutely no point having negotiated the rights to bring back this classic monster if you then redesign it out of all recognition.
Well, it's redesigning the Daleks because Russell wants the episode 6 Dalek to be the most Dalek-y Dalek. So it's taking what's gone before and it's making it credible and realistic and scary.
The original iconic shape must be kept. However, it was bulked up and certain design elements were changed.
Originally we had these strips like the 60s Daleks, and Russell wanted the slats to come back, so we added those. And it was just bulking it up. Ed was always very keen to make all of this very chunky, and I think it was just chunking everything up, going back and adding inches to all the dimensions. Everyone was very keen to keep so much of it, and the original design is so good that it was just a case of having fun and adding what we can to the existing template.
Such as the dome lights, which were more inspired by the look from the Daleks from the Peter Cushing Doctor Who films. Likewise, at one point it was considered to replace the sucker plunger wheel claw instead, but this design change was ultimately rejected. Mike Tucker, who'd worked on the classic series of Doctor Who, was hired to build a Dalek, having had experience with them before.
Russell was, however, keen that it was built by somebody with some experience of them, and with me being, as we pointed out, one of the few people who'd worked on the old show, and as somebody who does have a fondness for Daleks, it must be said, Russell said, well, if we give this job to Mike, we guarantee it'll come up looking Dalek-shaped.
One theory states that they considered making the Daleks silver and blue, matching their original appearances. This is spurred on by images of the making of the Dalek with this colour scheme. Personally, I don't think this is true though, because I could be wrong, but I think the silver and blue colour scheme is just sort of the first layer of paint that they put on it or something. I think it's to do with the materials that the items are made of, which would also explain why they were that colour in the 60s. There was no need for them to be that colour, it was in black and white, so back then there would have been no point for them to be that colour specifically. And if the silver and blue are just the sort of normal pre-paint prop colours for the Daleks, it would also explain why as soon as Doctor Who turned to colour in the 70s they didn't leave them like that. They painted them ironically grey, which I think is sort of an odd choice. You know, the first time the Daleks can be seen not grey and they paint them grey. One interesting definite colour choice that changed last minute was the plunger arm, which originally was going to have a gold section. This colour was also on a version that May made that had the mutant revealed, so this was so very nearly used, even to the point that publicity photos of the Dalek with this plunger were taken, and one in particular was widely used, and I remember this picture being everywhere. I personally had it on my pencil case, my lunchbox, and on my backpack that I took to school. I had this poster from the Doctor Who exhibition in Brighton. I think I even had a cake with it on. It was everywhere, you could not get away from it in 2005. But usually they edited it to make the gold bit silver, but occasionally it slipped through as it was, and it would have the gold arm instead. For example, this book, Monster's First Villains, in many versions had the golden plunger arm, but I had this book and if I recall correctly I think mine had the silver plunger arm. Eventually, the prop was completely finished despite a tight deadline of 3.5 weeks due to the Terry Nation Estate's initial reluctance to allow the Daleks to be used in a period where the Dalek would have been replaced with a new enemy called a future human.
Russell had come up with a new idea for a replacement lead villain for the series, and he'd drawn it even. He's quite a good draftsman, Russell, and he told me what the concept of it was. And it's very, very different from a Dalek, and it became something like a rather sadistic little schoolboy. Before this non-Dalek would kill people, it would giggle and say, "Let's have fun."
It's fun!
And it meant it. As far as it was concerned, it was like a kitten toying with a pet shrew, and it would just do things in order to humiliate the people before it killed it. And it didn't see it as being particularly a terrible thing, it just happened to enjoy killing people and having a good laugh as it did so. It was nice. It would probably have traumatised children, which is what I was after.
With the prop completed, filming for the episode began at National Museum Cardiff on the 25th of October 2004 before moving to the Millennium Stadium the next day, where most of the filming took place.
We wheeled it down to the Millennium Stadiums. We were given a little room to set it up in. And we got it all set up. We met Barnaby Edwards, who was the operator. Nick Briggs came down, who's doing the voice. And we had a day, really, of getting Barnaby used to it, getting him comfortable with the way it worked, adjusting the seat heights and stuff like that. And right at the end of that day, we knew that Julie Gardner and Phil Collinson and Joe Ahern were going to come and have a look at the prop, ready for the following day's filming. And we were sort of tipped the wink that they were on their way down the corridor, so we stuck Barnaby into the prop and got him to sort of come out in character, as it were, and it did. It got a fantastic reaction.
I was absolutely hysterical. It was just amazing to turn this corridor corner and see this beautiful bronze gleaming thing zooming towards me. It was so exciting.
The new prop was still moved around manually and the sucker arm and gun was still operated by the operator inside, but the head was now remote controlled, which on the classic Daleks was another job that the operator had to do themselves.
To be honest, we did look at completely radio controlling it in the manner of a Robot Wars robot, but actually the most versatile machine you can come up with is a person sitting inside it and moving it around with their feet. It's fast, it's infallible, it can be directed really easily. So we kept that basic mechanism. It is still a guy sitting on a wooden platform, moving the prop with his feet and operating the gun arm and the sucker arm manually.
Inside this casing is a bubbling lump of hate,
Otherwise known as Barney.
What we did bring in as an innovation, if you like, is that the head and the eye stalk movement is radio controlled.
This stick will do the head. So it's from the Dalek's point of view, the head's turning to the right and vice versa. We've got eye light control on this knob there, and we've got the elevation of the eye on that stick there on friction.
I make it sound as though it's talking by wiggling the mouth.
No one will believe you.
So that movement left, right and the eye up and down was taken away, because the old props traditionally, the poor old operator inside was trying to operate gun, sucker, movement, eye, head, everything.
And turn over every camera, please. Thanks for watching tonight then, guys. Let the dance and you. 600? Ooh, scary.
Nice.
Nice, isn't it?
You eating, boy? Are you chewing, Dalek? Perhaps you'd like to share that with everyone.
Phase 1.
Yes.
The snood. Pair of tights, 99p. Phase 2. The protective glasses. Phase 3. Earmuffs. Phase 4. Superhero.
Please, I'm sorry for whatever I've done. Please just let me out. I promise not to do it again.
The looks of the Dalek, of course, weren't the only thing that were important in comprising the revamped villain. The sound effects had to be incredibly compelling. Every movement of the Dalek has a sound and it really brings it to life. Making it seem truly heavy and mechanical. Even just the sound of it killing someone is comprised of 3 separate sound effects.
When the Dalek kills people, traditionally you get that type of effect there, you get a negative type of effect. Right, first off we can have the laser part from the Dalek. And then we can add in the shooting part of the element, which is actually a sound effect from a library, sound effects library. So you've got the 2 elements, and then we've got the killing effect, which is kind of like the negative skeleton X-ray type effect. That actually comes from from the 1960s. It's an old Doctor Who sound effect. You get the 3 sound effects all kind of making together, and of course there'll be a nice big scream for when he dies as well.
That's what really distinguished the new Daleks from the classic era versions, the detailing. Visually, the new Dalek was far more detailed, displaying rivets and markings and all that.
So it retained the same silhouette as the old one, but all the dressing and detail and finesse was a lot more up to date, a lot more designed and thought through. Gave people, you know, a wow factor of, oh my God, they've not looked quite that good ever before. And I think we've succeeded from that point of view in that people who know the series backwards have gone in and been excited about all the changes we've made. The general public have looked at it and gone, oh, haven't they always looked like that? So I think it looks like you remember the Daleks were in your head as opposed to how they actually were.
Compared to the relatively smooth and I'd argue plasticky looking exteriors of the classic era. In terms of audio, the old Daleks were in many ways silent, such as when they move. When a Dalek flew in remembrance of the Daleks, there didn't seem to be a specific sound effect that could be heard for the flying.
You are the Doctor! You are the enemy of the Daleks! You will be exterminated!
Although maybe there was, it's hard to tell because of the loud 80s music they put over the scene. To update this for Dalek in 2005, they created a sound effect for the elevation.
Then there's also a different sound, which is more a hummy sound, a levitating sound. hazy kind of buzzy sound inside that it's like its own kind of breathing, working type sound. Quite often we have the sound of the eye working as well. You got the kind of the iris kind of movements as well.
Of course, one iconic aspect of the Dalek is its voice, and in order to encapsulate this aspect, Nicholas Briggs was brought in to voice it. Briggs had worked on Doctor Who related projects previously and voiced the Daleks for Big Finish Productions audio dramas, including Jubilee. As a result, he was the perfect person to draft in to voice the Daleks for their televised return.
Exterminate! Exterminate! Exterminate!
Dalek is an episode that, through one individual Dalek, allows Briggs to showcase his talent and emotional range that truly brings this Dalek to life.
Joe Ahern kept saying to me,
Do it slower. Just really milk it. Let the pauses live and, make her wait and all this kind of thing.
which I thought I was doing, but I think I kept getting caught up in the energy of the scene. And he kept coming back saying, slower. And then he came back and said, let's do it one last time. And I want you to make Billy cry. And she'd been getting quite close to it because the whole scene is that she feels really sorry for this alien and he's going, oh, I'm dying. And, the idea is that the Dalek is a damn good actor. And he's got, his single-minded objective here is, I want to make this person so sorry for me that they eventually touch me, and when they do, I've got them. And I'm out of here because I will absorb genetic information. I will be able to, get strength of purpose and strength, So when he said that to me, I thought, that's what the Dalek wants to do. The Dalek wants to make Rose cry. So she's worrying that the creature's suffering. And so I kept playing with the idea of making her think that maybe I died before I finished speaking. So, and I'm sure they'll play around with the timing in editing, but so I made her wait for everything, and I could see the longer I made her wait, she's just there, and her little eyes were filling up. Or I should say big eyes. She's got lovely big eyes, and just filling up.
Indeed, I've personally seen many people that watched this episode casually mention that they felt sorry for the Dalek, showing Briggs' performance combined with Shearman's writing absolutely nailed what they were trying to do. The relationship between Dalek and the story it was adapted from captures perfectly the reason why the Doctor Who reboot was such a success. Jubilee had been a terrific 2-hour, 20-minute long story which literally creates a whole new universe to explore the ideas that Shearman wanted to. It's literally set in an alternate timeline. But he expertly takes that and slims it down and simplifies it for Dalek to create one of the sleekest episodes of Doctor Who ever created. That is what Davies did to Doctor Who that made it such a success. He took what was good about the classic series, slimmed it down, simplified it, and just made it brilliant. For Dalek, they had one objective: show everyone the new Daleks and why they're great. They get this done perfectly, and part of making the Daleks great again involved making sure every one of their flaws was dealt with. The Daleks couldn't get upstairs, so now they could fly. The Daleks couldn't shoot anything behind them, so now they swivel their middle section. Their sucker arm didn't do anything, except now they can sucker you to death. Anyone could manhandle a Dalek, but now you burst into flames if you touch one.
The last guy that touched it burst into flames. I won't touch it then.
That last one was sort of a throwaway line in the episode, but I think it was probably addressing the weakness of people grabbing Daleks and throwing them off balconies and all that sort of thing. Combine that with a spectacular showcase of the Dalek's abilities, its armour that's invincible to bullets, its shield which disintegrates bullets before it even touches it, its ability to regenerate itself and work out billions of combinations in a second, but most cleverly its wit and power. It kills people in the most efficient ways to show how clever it is and what it can do, but it does it so slowly because although it's doing it efficiently, it doesn't need to. It's shown off constantly without uttering a word, and it adds such menace to the character.
It wants us to see.
This Dalek is probably the most ingeniously characterised Dalek in Doctor Who history. The legacy of this episode is long-lasting and to this day is considered by many to be one of the greatest Doctor Who episodes ever. There were only 3 major criticisms with the episode that I know of, mainly that of the title of the episode given a reveal of the Dalek away, and indeed I agree, I think it would be far more effective if you didn't know it was a Dalek story. I also understand why they called it Dalek. Also, I remember at a time that the episode got criticised by the media watchdog for showing scenes torturing the Dalek. Apparently the British Board of Film Classification said, We are concerned about role models for children using the sort of tactics that Doctor Who used against the Dalek. If that was transferred into the playground, it would be something that we would want to tackle. Indeed, I personally remember going to school the next Monday and electrocuting some of my classmates. And finally, the media watchdog referred to the phrase canoodle or spoon used in the episode
English, look after the girl. Go and canoodle or spoon or whatever it is you British do.
as being inappropriate sexual language.
I'm aware that there have been a few complaints already about the words canoodle and spoon in the series. It is true that I do want, obviously, to corrupt children, and I hope that all children before the age of 18 will be using spoons now because of the episode.
On the day it was aired, the BBC also released a game based on it on their website titled The Last Dalek, in which you get to play as a Dalek in the episode escaping and killing people. This was the first of the Doctor Who website games that was released, the first in a long line that spread throughout the Russell T Davies era, and if you grew up with them like me, they left a lasting impact, as I fondly remember playing these games, and The Last Dalek was definitely the most iconic of them all. As for the story's future, on the 11th of March 2021, the episode is due to be released as a target novel written by Robert Shearman. Ultimately, Dalek is one of the most iconic episodes of Doctor Who, and it just has a weird, nostalgic feeling for me. I remember 15 years ago when it was on. Just now I was looking through old behind the scenes photos of the episode, and I really liked this one and wanted to highlight it because I feel like it captures the feeling of the time. These people knew they were making something great. It was such a special time, the excitement around Dalek, and so that's why Dalek is one of my favourite episodes of Doctor Who.